Hi, everybody. Welcome. Good evening. We're letting everybody in right now. We will begin momentarily. As you're coming in, make sure you're in the right place. You are here for the Future Senior Parent Presentation. And we will begin in a few minutes. All right, it's just past 6 o'clock. So as a couple people are still being entered or being allowed into the presentation, we'll go ahead and get going here. Good evening, everybody. My name is Christy Keener. I am the assistant principal over the instruction department here at Newbury Park High School. And you are here tonight for the Future Senior Information Night. Home stretch, almost ready to start senior year for your students. And we appreciate you being here tonight to learn all about registration information for classes and a little sprinkling of some college information as well as we plan for the post-high school opportunities for your students. We will introduce our counseling team and then go ahead and get going. And just for note, we are recording this presentation and the direct link with the presentation's contents will be emailed out tomorrow morning to all future senior students and parents, as well as posted on our counseling website. So to introduce our counselors, we will begin with Tina Choi.
Hello, my name is Tina Choi. I'm the counselor responsible for last names A through DA.
Hi, I'm Tina Coleman, and I'm responsible for the letters E through J.
Hi, I'm Leslie Nedwick, responsible for letters K through MO.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Edith Cortez, and I'm counselor for students with last names MU through SANC.
Rick.
Rick Naporum, I was muted, sorry. SAND through Z.
Hey everyone, I am Nikki Sanchez and I am the College and Career Readiness Counselor.
Great, so that is your wonderful counseling team, and Rick Napora will take it from here and guide us through the presentation. And if you have any questions throughout the presentation, please feel welcome to put anything and everything in the chat, and one of our counseling department members will address questions as we go, and we will also stick around at the end and take any questions that you have at that time. So Rick, it's all yours.
All right, hello Panthers and parent Panthers. This entire presentation, although it will be recorded and sent to you via email, if you want to look at it again on the counseling website, this is what it looks like now. The district has changed over. So on the left-hand side, you'll see counseling and you'll scroll down to course registration. And then you will see there's freshman registration form, sophomore, junior, senior, and then you'll see the presentation that we gave to the kids in the classrooms. And then this is the presentation we're currently working on right this second. And so without further ado, you've already met all of us as counselors, and there's contact information at the bottom. This is an overview briefly of what kids need to graduate from Newbury Park High School. And so all kids will be taking 4 years of English. We make them do that. We make them take 3 years of math, which includes Algebra 1 and any 2 other flavors of math that they desire. Science needs to be 2 years. Most kids have already covered that in 9th and 10th grade. Social science would be world history, US history, Gov and Econ. So next year, your students will be in either Gov and Econ or IB 20th. PE and sports could be a combination of dance or PE or weight training or sports. If you play a sport, it's 5 credits per season. Health, most kids would have taken in 9th grade. If students have not taken it yet, then we need to talk. Then it's VPA, which is visual performing art, or a language, a world language, or a CTE, which is career technical education. So it's an either or. If kids have had one of those for 10 credits or 1 year, they've met that requirement. And then electives, those would be anything above and beyond the required minimums above, or it would be some other thing like foods or wood shop or that sort of thing. So a lot of the seniors are freaking out like, how am I going to get my remaining credits? If they take an extra math next year, which we recommend, there's 10 credits. If they take an extra science, there's 20. So that's how that works. D's are higher. D is diploma. A C or higher. C is in CAT, which is what we recommend to move on to higher levels or for college. This is a little different. So we just talked about what you need to graduate, and then we have what's called A through G requirements. And A through G literally is a letter designation that goes next to a subject. You will see that the A randomly was assigned to history, and to get into a UC or a CSU, or I should say to be eligible minimally to apply to a UC or CSU, a student would need the 2 years, which we cover automatically. The English, 4 years, same thing, that's already covered. This is where it slightly differs from what I just spoke of on the prior screen. It's 3 years of math, but it has to include algebra, geometry, and algebra 2. For kids that came to us from out of district, that could be integrated math 1, 2, and 3. And they do recommend a 4th year. So for those of you who have kids that are like, I'm so done with math, I would highly recommend math until you can math no more. And then lab science, they require 2, but recommend 3. And then this is different. To graduate Newbury Park, no world language is needed. To apply to most four-year colleges in North America, you will need 2 years of the same language. And for parents who are going to ask, does middle school count? The answer is yes. Colleges simply look at the terminal level of language you've reached. So for example, if a kid took Spanish 1 in 8th grade and then Spanish 2 in 9th, got a C or higher that last semester of Spanish 2 in 9th, done. But again, they recommend 3, and 4 is even better. Visual performing art, this is different. Remember, to graduate, you needed the VPA or the language or the CTE. For college purposes, for UCs and CSUs specifically, they need 1 year of the same area of VPA. It could be a year of dance, or it could be, a year of drawing. And then a G elective simply refers to another course from above, that's above and beyond, or it could be one of the many G elective courses that we offer. This is what's called an academic planner. And so we have this now on the counseling website, and we highly encourage kids, parents to check it out. They simply click, it starts the document, and then they can look at the pull downs for each individual subject and simply click the coursework they've already had thus far. And then they can also click the coursework they intend on taking, and then they can track their progress on the right-hand side. And once they click the boxes, they'll see easily how many credits they've earned and then how many credits would remain. This is similar, but a much better version of what a transcript would look like. The difference being the transcript is static and it shows what kids have thus far, whereas the planner will let them plot out, what the future is going to look like. The registration process, for those of you who want to know specifically what's going to happen, the kids are going to complete their course registration forms, and already we hope that the majority of our current 11th graders, rising seniors, have already completed the registration form. Hopefully you as parents have actually seen one. We expect that they'll enter their courses on cue by 2/5. There might be some stragglers, but we highly encourage, recommend, hope, pray that they'll get it done by then. And then the students will bring in the completed and signed form. Hopefully you've discussed it over dinner, looked it over and said, I absolutely love what my child has selected. And then you'll sign it. And then your child will bring that signed form. That's like their get into the office pass. And then we'll sit down with our computers. We'll look over the forms and make sure that what they put in queue was accurate. We'll make sure that you as a parent signed off on it. And we'll be pulling your kids out primarily during their English classes. If a student's not in an English class, some of them aren't, we'll call them in by their counselor and haunt them that way. So a lot of kids are going to ask you this and try and trick you. The minimum courses that a senior will need will completely depend on several things. One, how many credits they will have by the end of this school year. So when your kids, we gave all the kids a transcript, and hopefully you've seen that. If you haven't, and they're like, what? I don't know what you're talking about. You can also look in Q and click the transcript tab, and it'll have a numerical tally of where your student is at right this second. You can add on an additional 30 credits, for example, if your kids are taking 6 classes. And if they're at 180 by June, that means as a senior, they can get away with as few as 5 classes, but 5 classes is the minimum. They need 5. If your student is going to end up with 170, that means they're going to need 6 because the numerical amount they have to hit is 230. And then if your student's below 170 by the end of this school year, then we need to talk because it's going to be summer school or some other form of credits that can be earned off campus from an accredited school that you choose. You could start as early as now. There's a lot of fee-based places, and summer you can generally get a maximum of 10 credits, or that student may have to even take 7 classes next year. This is what the course registration form looks like. There was a link that I showed you earlier that you can click on and print one if your student didn't bring one home, but ideally they would have brought home, it's like a pink colored form that looks just like this. Just make sure they filled out their name, their ID, your home phone number, parent email address, whatever their cell phone is, so we can call and haunt them in summer if we need to because their courses weren't, chosen correctly or something changed. There's a lot of instructions in the left-hand side, which I won't read to you because you can read that at your leisure. It talks about what schedule changes we can and cannot do. We can't choose teachers or periods or that sort of thing. Talks about athletics and prerequisites. On the right-hand side of the form, what you will see, all we're asking the kids to do is pick an English class because they all have to have an English class. They have to pick government and econ, or they can pick IB20 if they choose that, or we have AP Gov and Honors Econ. That's number 1 and 2. After that, those are the only 2 courses that are required for core coursework. There's 4 other slots on there, and those could be a math, it could be a science, it could be another language. What we told the kids is when they're choosing to fill those slots, if it's a core course, like a sequential math or a sequential world language or a lab science, then they don't necessarily have to have alternates specifically for the math and for the world language if they're continuing a level. Anything else, we want them to put the course they want and then 2 alternates. So what Q will do, let's say the student puts down forensic science, and let's say that forensic science is full, then the computer will automatically default to the number 1 position for alternate. So let's say the student said, okay, if I don't get forensics, I want anatomy and physiology. If that one doesn't work out for whatever reason, it'll default to number 2 alternate. And in that case, they might have chosen something like biotech. So what the kids do to screw things up, unfortunately, is they'll either leave the alternates blank, even if we're like, you need alternates, and then they'll stare at us in the office saying, what do you think I should pick? But that should all be done beforehand. They should have determined what class they want and what alternates they would settle for. The next block would be another course and 2 more different electives. That's the other mistake they make. They use the same alternates all the way down the form. And then obviously if that alternate's full, the computer can't schedule. It doesn't matter if it's in position 3, 4, 5, or 6. So that's where the kids will put what they want. Ideally, again, it would be like a math, a science, a language, and so forth. But they can also put things down like work experience or, teacher assistant if they find a teacher that will allow them to TA and they have the form returned. We do offer 7th period classes. This is kind of a new thing. We have a fantastic variety of coursework that they can take period 7. And if a student does want to take a period 7 class, that means that student could also have a free period. So it's like a 1-for-1. If you take a 7th, you could have a free 1st, or you could have a free 2nd, or you could have a free 5th or a 6th. And that's why the box below the 7 has little boxes that the parents can check and say, I give permission for Johnny to have that free 6th or whatever. For the 7th period, again, you will have a first choice and you'll put the course down that you want and then an alternate for that course. There's fewer courses period 7, which is why we don't go as deep on the alternates. And then you'll see at the bottom of the form, if a student does intend to go to, let's say, summer school, they will put down the school that they're intending to apply to, because a lot of that information isn't out yet for summer school. So Moorpark, for example, won't be out for another month or so. OFL, Vista Real, all those. They'll put down the place they think they're going to attend and the course they think they're going to take. And then they would put down the course they'd want to take at Newbury Park if they finish that course in the summer. The 2nd page and 3rd page of the registration coursework, on the left, you will see the courses that are available during periods 1 through 6. That's for any rising senior. You'll notice that on the course title, there'll be an asterisk that means it's college prep. The next column over, you will see the prerequisite that's required for the student to enroll in that particular class. And then on the next page over, you will see the 0 periods. There's very few 0 periods, and they're primarily either performance-based with an audition or teacher permission. That's why there's not so many of them. And you'll see where it says audition required or instructor permission. And below that, you will see all the 7th period classes. There's 2 flavors of 7th period class. One is online, which literally means the student does not go to the actual classroom. He or she should be highly self-motivated, a self-starter, and they should be able to like parcel out their work and get it done in a timely fashion. So that's online. Hybrid means they go a couple of times a week in person. The teacher will determine the days, and the other days are online. And so that's the current lineup of coursework. And what we do is we have a screen where the kids can hold up their camera and they can click on a little like barcode thing, and then it'll let them sign up for the course that they want for that 7th period. And then at the bottom of the form, you'll see CEC, which is Career Education Center. And that's where kids can take things like welding or auto shop. And there's live links at the bottom, which won't help you on the pink form. But when you go into it through the counseling website, those live links will take you right to the CEC registration. Period 7 classes, which I just touched on a little bit, again, on the left-hand side defines what a hybrid option, course would look like. And then on the right would be the purely online options. And that's that barcode scan that I was talking about, where kids can just click that and they can sign up today if they'd like to. So again, you could even, take this and put it next to your refrigerator if you'd like. D or F grades. Any student that earns a D as in dog, that equals diploma typically. It won't allow you generally to go into the next sequential class. And an F means, especially if it's in a course that was required for graduation, like English, for example, the student's going to have to repeat that course. So it's always a good idea for parents to check regularly things like Canvas and Q. We just posted grades for first semester, so it would be fantastic if you reviewed the transcript function in Q and checked for any D or F grades that haven't, been addressed or remediated, or there's been groundings or whatnot. And then if a student wants to go right to a 4-year college, generally colleges in North America are going to require a C or higher to be minimally eligible. The only exceptions are typically math. So if a student gets like a D or an F the first semester of Algebra 2, they technically could get a C or higher the second semester, and that would validate that first semester. So we recommend kids don't go that route because it still lowers their GPA. So another thing to keep in mind, and this is super important, if a student rests on their laurels in 12th grade and they did really well in grades 9, 10, and 11, then they apply to a college, let's say a UC or Cal State in the fall, and let's say then they face plant the second semester because the dreaded senioritis sets in. If they earn below a C, then what could happen is, even if you get the happy email or happy paper in the mail that says you've been accepted to University XYZ, and if the student ends up at the end of the year having earned that, let's say D, they could get a thanks for playing letter that says we're rescinding your offer. And so we want to avoid that at all costs. And students also have to let colleges know if something changed. If they initially said they're going to take 6 classes, and then kids are about halfway through the year and they're like, hey, Napora, can I drop, whatever? I'm like, you can, but I need parent permission, and you should advise the college what you're doing, or ask the college if by doing that, that would jeopardize, your potential acceptance. So super important. D or F grades, the ways you can remediate. In our district, we offer remediation courses. They're going to be at Westlake High School this year. We would sign the students up. They could take up to 10 credits. They'd spend several hours of the day fixing their mistakes. The other thing that parents can choose to do is take coursework from any accredited school that they want. It could be OFL, it could be Vista Real, it could be Method, it could be literally any place that's accredited. If the student is going to apply to a CSU or UC or be an athlete, it's up to the parent to make sure that that school is not only accredited and on the A through G list, and also that it's NC2A approved, because you want to make sure that that coursework would satisfy the requirements for an athlete to be eligible to play in college. And the key number you're looking for is up to 40 credits can be transferred from off-campus coursework, not including our own district summer school, to the Newbury Park transcript. And then the other option is community college for summer. The catalog's not out yet. It's a fantastic way to go because it's free tuition, it's college credit, and it's weighted GPA. So again, reiteration that it's your responsibility to pursue, if you pursue an online class, that you need to find out if it's accredited. Lots of kids ask us, where should I go? Or is it accredited? And the answer is we're not entirely sure. Registration resources, super important. So what will happen is all the information that kids need to complete the form is on the counseling website. On this particular presentation, when you click here, it takes you right to where we just talked about, the registration. The course list, this is super important. That's already in their hands, what they can take by grade level. This one, I'm going to go ahead and click on it and show you. When you go to the course directory for the our website, this is the district course catalog, and we also have a course catalog for Newbury Park High School that's slightly easier to use, in my opinion. So when we're on that, you click course catalog here, it'll take you to all the coursework we offer at Newbury Park. So if a kid's asking me, like, hey, Napora, what happens in, drawing? I recommend that they go right here, and then they would find drawing, and then they would click on it, and then it would tell them what level of difficulty it is, how many estimated minutes of homework there may be, what the district recommends or requires for a prereq, and then what the department recommends. And then most importantly, what the description of the course is, how it's graded, and the syllabus. So super important that parents know where that is. We also have, so that's the actual course profiles. And then subject flow chart, that looks like this. The subject flow chart, let's say, for example, you want to look at science. The flow chart would show you if a student started out in bio honors and then went to chem honors, then they could take one of these other sciences after chem honors, onward all the way to the senior year. And then you have the CP track here with earth science and then biology, and then it can go many different directions. We have a similar flow chart for math. Here's CP. And then we also have a similar flow chart for honors math, slightly different. And then we also have things regarding audition coursework or courses that require performance and that sort of thing. So super important there. And then a prerequisite waiver, that is for a student who wants to take a course that didn't earn the prerequisite. So for example, if I wanted to go into a higher level course, let's see, back where I was again, I just lost my spot. Hang on one second. Technical difficulties, here we go. So if the student, for example, is in a course right now and it's honors, AP, or IB, and then within that course, they're getting a B as in boy, then that student can go on to the next level of IB, AP, honors course, no problem. If a student's in a CP course right now, and that course, the student's earning less than 2 A's, then what they're going to need to do is fill out a waiver. And so when they click on the waiver link, it'll take them to a Google Doc, and they'll fill it out, and the parent will look it over, and the parent will bless it. And then we will let the student into that course, despite that student not having met the prerequisites. And then hopefully things will go well. Guidelines. This is the guideline for any student who's seeking to take one of these courses. Again, like I mentioned, the AP, HIB, you need just the B or higher to continue. CP course, again, you need the 2 A's. And if neither occur, then that's when you get the waiver. Dual enrollment, that simply is a name for students who are in high school right now and then who are also taking a community college class. The reason why we love that so much is students are in high school credit, and the magic number is 3 semester units at Moorpark College or Oxnard or Pierce, whatever. 3 semester units at the college level equals 10 for Newbury Park High School. It does count against the 40, so remember that. And then also it's weighted coursework. So if a student gets an A in a course at Moorpark College this summer, like astronomy, then that would be like a 5-point A. And then they also get college credit that's typically transferable. The way you would know that is when you click on the coursework at Moorpark College, it'll tell you right in the title whether or not it's UC-CSU transferable, and if it meets general education requirements, et cetera, and what limitations there might be. And then options, they have way more courses than we are able to offer. I have a kid taking abnormal child psychology right now, another kid taking accounting to get kind of a head start on career exploration. And then they offer different flavors. And so they have online completely, they have Zoom, and they also have in person. And so I typically ask kids to remember the pandemic and how they didn't like so much the remote learning, but more and more kids are asking for online now. And so again, if your student is the type of student that could survive an online course, well, then that's a great idea. Otherwise, in person would be the way I would go. Post-high school options. I'm a huge fan of career education. I was a mechanic long before I was in education. There's a lot of apprenticeships that kids can do through the state of California, like elevator mechanic, where they take a basic skills test. If they pass and they get hired on, they can get paid up to $35 an hour. And then after the 4 years, then they can go on and be like a journeyman, and then they can make 6 figures. And so great way to go for kids to be paid while they're learning, and it can count toward retirement. Community college, we know what those are. Military, I was in the military, so I tell kids that if they ever want any kind of feedback or input about what to ask recruiters or what kind of tests are required to get you certain jobs that you think you might want. Lots of kids think they're going to be a Navy SEAL, but they don't understand there's lots of components to that, which would be the ASVAB test and then the physical part and so forth. And if you don't make what you want, they can put you in anything they want you to do, which is not always, rosy. University, that's college. So we already know, most of us, what that means. It's generally referring to a 4-year school, commonly called university, interchangeable with college, and then straight into the workforce. And some kids do that and they do fabulously there. Financial aid. So we need all of our students as seniors to confirm that all of our seniors have completed what's called the FAFSA, which is the Free Application for Federal Student Aid, and there's a link to it, or the DREAM Act. And so when the students fill that out, the big prize they get is a couple of years of free community college in the state of California, which is fantastic. Saves parents a whole lot of money. And even if you're a parent who's won the $1 billion lottery and you think you might not get financial aid, you never know until you try. And so I do have some parents that probably thought they wouldn't qualify. And then after they filled out the FAFSA and they put the schools on the FAFSA that they wanted to be considered for financial aid, some of them were pleasantly surprised. So we do have in our room B1, which is our college and career center, we have several, fabulous people in there that could walk kids through the FAFSA or answer questions about the FAFSA or the DREAM Act. So there's that. And there's an opt-out form. So if a student's like, no, I don't want to fill out a FAFSA, that's fine as well. You can fill out the opt-out form and our AP of instruction would get that and keep it on file. Community college, the two things, there are 2 ways to get into a community college. One is that you have a high school diploma, and the other is that you're the age of 18. So that's it. If a student does go to a community college, they don't really consider high school GPA. The only coursework they'd consider that you've taken would have been AP or IB coursework if you've taken the exam at the end and if you scored high enough to actually have transferable college coursework. There's no SAT or ACT required. And what's amazing, in addition to it being free for a couple of years, is small class sizes. And again, the only cost you would have would be like fees, like they're minimal. And then what could happen is if a student doesn't know what he or she wants to do yet, fantastic way to figure it out without you going broke. And then also what's awesome is they have what's called TAG, which means to 6 of the 9 UCs, there's a guaranteed transfer to certain majors. So some kids are like, that means I could just, major in comp sci at Davis, right? But they need to understand that they have to look at the individual college to find out if there's a TAG agreement at that campus within that major, because it's not everything, but it's a lot of things. And then for the Cal States, of which there are 23, they have what's called a degree with a guarantee, and that's called like an ADT, Associate Degree for Transfer. And there's another website we link to where kids could type in where they plan to go to community college, what they plan to study at the community college, and then it'll tell them if that program is transferable and to which Cal States it would be transferable to. And then we also have things about, often kids will find out they don't get into, let's say, Santa Barbara, and then they're like, oh, I really wanted Santa Barbara. Then it's, in my opinion, it's much more clever for them to then just go to Moore Park or Santa Barbara City College and then get their tag. And then it's the same exact end result. They get their bachelor of whatever from Santa Barbara, and there's no line at the bottom that says via community college. So community college is fantastic. 4-year university option, there's 23 Cal States in California. There's the 9 UCs. The application deadlines for both aren't until November 30th. And even if kids want to turn them in easier because they think that'll make them sleep better at night, you should know that they don't start reviewing the applications until after that November 30 deadline. That doesn't mean kids should wait until that evening at 11:59, because then the server is probably jammed up. So if they get their stuff put in, by the beginning or middle of November and have the counselors like us, review their applications, that's the way to go. Out-of-state public and colleges, it's all over the map. There's places like ASU that are rolling admission that kids can apply pretty much any time. There's other colleges that aren't due until February or January. And so it's up to the student to make sure that they review this kinds of things so they're not left like, oh my gosh, I missed the deadline. And the same with even out-of-country schools. To get into a CSU, we already talked about that earlier in the slides about what was required. I just wanted you to know not to memorize all these things, but to at least know where to click on the link to figure it out. We link directly to the Cal State site, and they actually have a breakdown of subject requirement, the fact that they don't use SAT or ACT for the near future, those sorts of things. So again, not to task your heads with trying to commit everything to memory, just know where to find it. The UC, very similar. The big difference between UC and Cal State requires no letters of recommendation unless a student's applying EOP. Also, for the Cal State, there's no personal statements from the student. And so the UC, on the other hand, again, no letters of recommendation, but students have to write 4 personal insight questions. There's 8 they can choose from. And we link to that as well. So students right now could be looking at that. And then this summer, thinking to themselves, I think I'm going to, start on my personal insight question, and they can do that. We also have another link explaining in intimate detail that a personal insight question is not an essay, very different. And then there's an admission index and factors. So when kids and parents are like, what should my kid be doing to get into a UC? The right answer is going to the 13 factors and reviewing them, and then using that to determine whether or not your student's in the right path. And so I'll touch on that in a minute. And all students have to have at least attempted geometry. That's another rule. So when you do click on the factors, these are the 13 factors. And again, not going to ask you to commit it to memory, but what I will tell you is numbers 1 through 7 are all about GPA and how hard your courses are. So a lot of kids are like, but what if I'm really good flute, player, flautist? Will that get me in? It's like, you don't even get into the special talents until number 10. So first and foremost, they're looking at how hard did you work in school based on the coursework that was available to you and so forth. So parents, you should just know where that lives. And then you'll be getting the right answer because it's from the horse's mouth, so to speak. Out of state could be literally all over the map. Again, there are places like the WUI schools. WUI stands for Western Undergraduate Exchange, and it refers to colleges that are primarily in the Western states and Hawaii. And a lot of the state schools in Montana and places like that, they have very different kind of thresholds for admitting students. They don't, specifically have a formula like a UC or a Cal State. Some of them don't even do weighted GPAs. So a kid who's taken just college prep throughout high school and done really well doesn't have to stress out about, I've never taken an honors class, because if they go to a college that's a good fit for them, then it's a moot point. So again, it varies by college. There's a thing called the Common Application, of which probably 700, 800, 900 colleges are using now. There's a list. When you click on this link, it takes you and shows you which ones use the Common Application. Transcript, super important topic here. We have 3 GPAs in the transcript. Cumulative simply means everything a student's ever done, including PE, health. Scholastic is everything I just said, except PE or athletic PE. And then weighted GPA is everything I said from the Scholastic transcript, with the exception of an additional bonus point added per grade. So if you get an A, it's a 5. If you get a B, it's a 4. And there's a legend when you click on this that opens up. And on that legend, and you scroll, it tells you with little arrows pointing how the transcript is laid out. And then the breakdown of the GPAs and how they're calculated are all right here. So again, don't have to commit it to memory. You just have to know how to get to it. And it's linked directly in this slide. And then Head Start. So as I alluded to earlier, if a kid wants to start on the personal statements or whatever, personal insight question, a lot of college apps open, at the end of the summer. And so I have an application page. When the kids click on it, it says applying to college. There's a cool video of how to select your colleges. There's a flow chart by UC school, by Cal State school, by Common App school that tells the kids kind of what they should be doing. That's a fantastic way to go. And then entrance exams, super important. If you're applying to like a super high-end competitive school, then having an SAT or an ACT could be a good thing if your student tests above the 50th percentile of the typical admitted applicants. So let's say it's like a 1400 and your kid gets a 1500, that's good. If that college accepts, you know, a score, that would be called a test optional school or a test flexible school. If it's a test blind school and your kid is only applying to test blind schools, then there's really no benefit to taking an SAT or an ACT or stressing about it. But if you want to keep that door open and you think, well, maybe we will apply to one of those schools where a test score would be a good thing, then in that case, I would go to the testing site. We actually have a testing site on the counseling website that says standardized testing. And on that link, there are free test prep for SAT, for ACT. And the very basic thing I recommend is the kids who've taken a PSAT, for example, take a practice ACT test that's timed, and then you compare your scores and you'll instantly know which test is better for your student. There's no point in putting kids through the anxiety and pain and stress of forcing them to go to boot camp for SAT if that's not even the right test for them. So on the counseling website, under testing. And then college, I'm thinking about, we want kids to build a list. And so one of the great tools that you could use that's free and easy to use is what's called College Vine. So here's what College Vine does. When you go to College Vine, it asks you to create a profile. So this is my pretend profile right here. So on the profile, I'm able to add things like extracurricular activities, my demographics. So this pretend student that I just made up, Panther Paw, is from Newbury Park High School. Preferences are, you know, the following. Gender, I went with female. I'm Asian. I residing in California. I have a 4.0 and a 1500. And the reason I have such a great GPA in that 1500 is so I can show you that even with that, that's no guaranteed ticket to like a higher, you know, competitive college. And I took 12 AP or IB classes. I've taken 4 college classes, 7 honors classes. I want to major in biochem, biophysics, or molecular bio. I don't plan to apply for financial aid because my parents won the lottery. And finally, let's get to extracurriculars, because parents always ask this: what should I be doing in summer? So if the answer to that should be something your student genuinely enjoys, and ideally in which they could earn a tangible accomplishment, and even more ideally, that is related to their potential career aspirations. That's the answer. But if you just want to play the game of, well, what would it look like if I did this? So let's put in research, and then I'll go under the research category, and there's things called tiers. So not like tiers I didn't get in, but more like tiers like, okay, the very lowest tier for research would be, I paid money for a research program. That's the parents that pay $5,000 to send their kids to summer camp someplace at a college, and they're like, my kid did research. That's the lowest tier. The next one up would be, I conducted independent research, like with a college level advisor that's not published, or a private company, then research that published, then research through a formal application with an accredited university, all the way on to 250 top science journal, or an honorary application all the way to the top, which is top 10 scientific journals. So even if I click that and I click save, and then I click save, then if I go to the colleges that I've added in College Vine, so let me show you where that lives, then what will happen is it'll tell you from the schools that you've chosen, what your chances of actually getting to that school would be. So here's my school list that I've already added, and you can pick schools from like where it's located, how many hours are required on the application. So if you look at USC, even with all those fantastic, amazing things, and even my awesomeness with published research, I have like a 25% chance of getting in. And then Claremont McKenna, like 20% chance of getting in. Then Cornell, like 18% chance. The whole idea behind this game is this is the start of my list, and you'll notice that I have reach schools, and it's pretty heavy with reach schools. Like as I scroll down, I'm like, wow, these are all reaches. But then when I get to target, I'm like, oh, cool, Santa Barbara, I've got almost a 70% chance of getting in, and 66 at UCSD, and then I have some safeties. So ideally, The target list would be the majority of the real estate here. It would be like 5 to 7 schools of target. And then you'd have maybe 1 or 2 schools, unless parents like spending thousands of dollars for applications. And then you'd have maybe 1 or 2 safeties. And for the parents that are kind of data minded, when you click on the chances and why it came up with that algorithm like end result, it tells you what's important at that particular school to admit a student. And so some of them will be GPA, some of them will be the essay, some of them will be extracurricular. So that's just a cool place for you to go ahead and like get your list kind of started. And again, you can change your profile, you can add new colleges, you can find colleges based on things you like by the find school feature. You can basically say, I want to explore colleges based on location, admissions difficulty, which major they have. There's a whole bunch of filters right here you'll see, even acceptance rate for women or men, how much application effort there is. So if a kid's already stressed out and they're like, I got 1 hour left, you can even pick, the ones that are like minimum. So cool thing, and it's free. You can even make up a fake name if you want. So that would be my advice for getting started in the summer. If you're an athlete, you're going to play a sport in college, you have to go to the NCAA website and register for an NC2A account. And then this website right here with the link will tell you what specific course requirements there are for an athlete to play in college, because a lot of kids might make it through and then want to have an easy senior year and shocked to realize that they're 1 course short to play a sport in college. So super important. And then on-campus resources, which hopefully most kids know we have already. We have the College and Career Center in room B1 with several awesome people in there that can help you. We have the tutoring centers with tutoring like up to 3 times a day. And it's way better than parents spending thousands to have someone come over and do like homework babysitting, because when kids go to our tutoring centers, they're staffed by our teachers who know our content, and then their own real live teachers could look at their assessments and say, here's where you missed the boat. Here's where I think you should be working. Whereas the tutors that are hired are like, what do you want me to help you with? And the kid's like, I don't know. Wellness center, if you need social emotional deregulation, that kind of thing. We have 4 fantastic clinicians who are ready, willing, and able to help your kids through that. And then we have the counseling office, which is where we all live in our cages. And then now, I know I've talked fast and I've covered a lot of information. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to questions from anybody. Questions? Anyone? Questions?
Rick, can you go on our counseling website and maybe just show parents and students a general overview for when they're starting the college application process?
Sure. So this is where it lives. This is the main website right here. Let me go ahead and it's thinking. And we're there. So counseling, home, and there's also a drop down directly to applying to colleges. So it's right here, the second link from the top. What I will say is we're shifting platforms. So this video is very useful, and it does go into what I just covered on the College Vine. There's some stuff in there about Naviance, which is the current platform we are using. So if students have information in there that's still relevant, then a flow chart, for example, would be, let's say a student wants to apply to a UC school. When they click on it, it takes you to the application itself. There's a video that's from an actual real live like UC rep. And then we have like this one, super important advice regarding PIQs. Parents can click on it, and it's a real live rep from Santa Barbara that's walking kids through the PIQs. It's way better than parents who think that maybe the magic bullet is a private counselor or whatnot, because this is all information that's directly from, again, the reps at the schools. So again, it's applying to college. Once they build that tentative list, they'll know whether or not it's a UC school or a CSU school or a Common App school, and each drop-down menu has different advice in terms of what they should be doing to apply. And there's also helpful information about careers and exploration, because one of the first things I ask all my kids to do is go to take a career test. And so when you go to our links, which is also on the counseling website, and it's all alphabetical, one of the things you'll see is career exploration or career resources. And there's a test that a kid can take that's just called Career Explorer. And even if a kid thinks he wants to be a doctor, which is the most common one, I have them click Take Free Test, upper right-hand corner. And then again, they don't even need to put in a real name. And then they click start the assessment. It asks a series of questions like, how would you like to do this? And then I tell the kids on a daily basis, 8 to 12 hours a day to put food on the table. And they're like, oh, I'd hate that. Or analyze data. Oh, I hate that. It has math in it. Counsel people with drug or alcohol. I'm neutral. So at the end of all this, it gives them 4 to 6 careers that match not only their current interests, but also their personality, which I know as parents, you would agree, hasn't changed since your kids were kids, right? So super important. The combination of the Career Explorer to get them lined up for the majors would then allow them to use CollegeVine to choose colleges that had those majors. And then they could put things in together like what their GPA is like. And then it should give them that kind of list that they're talking about. So that's where it all lives in the counseling website.
Mr. Napor, can I ask you a question?
Yes.